All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prop Live, your weekly prop and costume making Q&A session. You guys submit your questions to me about your prop and costume making projects, and I answer them, help you out, help you figure out any technical problems you're having with whatever project you're working on, or anything else that you're curious about. This week, I'm flying solo. It's just me, Bill, down here in my office, and of course I have the whole chat, not totally solo. I got you guys right over here watching live. You guys have been sending in your questions for me to answer this week. Of course, if you want to join in on the fun, and I should have left this webpage open. If you want to join in on the fun every week, have a question that you submit, then you can head on over to punishprops.com/live. And you can see all of our live information there, as well as a handy form to submit your prop and costume making questions for the show. And those get sent to an email folder, and we go through them every week. I say we, I mean Brittany, my wife, because she's awesome. Lady Longshanks in the chat. And Brittany goes through them all and adds them to our list. That folder gets deleted every week. So we have a new batch of questions every week. We try and answer everyone's to the best of our ability. So head on over there and submit your questions. That's about it for the technical stuff. What else do I have here? We haven't done this in a while, and it is overdue. I haven't thanked our patrons in a while. You guys are the people who make this show and the rest of our video content possible over on patreon.com/punishprops. There's a bunch of you guys in there. There's 136 patrons, which kind of blows my mind. You are the people who pony up actual dollars and cents to make our videos better, to help us make more videos. So thank you guys so much for helping out with the show. Hey, Bob's in the chat. He says, Bill! Bob. Bob's awesome, and I like to make stuff. He has also started live streaming from his shop. You should go check him out. So anyway, yeah, thanks to our wonderful patrons for helping us out. You guys are great. What have I been working on? Couple things. I have something for you guys, and this is important. Well, it's important if you guys want to help us pick out the kind of content we're going to be making going forward. I've got a link. I wish I had a better way to share this link, but I will post it in the chat. It's SurveyMonkey is a place you'll go to do surveys. But anyway, this is a survey for like a questionnaire about the type of video content that we make. This is going to help us come up with a game plan for some video content going forward. It's really easy. It takes about 2 seconds to fill out. The link will be in the show notes for you guys to go check out. We're going to collect data for about a week or so, and then we'll put together some information. Speaking of our patrons from earlier, I think what we're going to do is have every so often probably have a vote that we'll put to our patrons. If you are someone who is helping support the show, you'll be able to help us pick what sort of projects we might be working on and what sort of videos we might be working on. So head on over this. You don't have to be a patron to take the current survey. That's just kind of to get a general barometer for what we've got going on. And we're going to collect all that data, sort of refine it, and then move on from there. So thank you, everyone who's already filled that out. We've gotten some really interesting information about the type of videos you guys like, the projects you guys like. So that would be awesome if you would go and fill that out. And it's really quick. What else? Okay, the project I've been working on, and this is totally just like me farting around. This is a type of project I've been wanting to do for a while. You guys have seen me working on this. I've been working on my Mr. Handy robot model. And this is a model, 1/6 scale model size of a little robot like that from the game Fallout 4. In the game, you can get a little Mr. Handy model. So that's basically what I'm making. But it's just been a problem-solving, fun way, like just I've never made a tiny model kit, and it's just a blast working on little robot things, doing a lot of sanding like this with a little twig, just sanding away. I did a sanding video last week, which was really fun. But I've got all these little, like, here's a leg, right? Here's his leg, or arm or leg, whatever. Here's a different part that I decided to print separately that goes on there. And then here's a buzzsaw that goes in that. There's a buzzsaw and a little pincer that goes on there. Tiny little pincer. And I've just been 3D printing and sort of working on these guys. I'm going to be molding and casting them. It's just been an itch I've been wanting to scratch for a long time. Little model making, in particular, a tiny robot. So I've been really, really stoked. Taverna du Draconado, that's a long username, thinks that me and Bob should do something together. That's a very interesting notion. I like that. Like costume uses Arduinos or lights. Yes, interesting stuff. Me and Bob, we'll be talking. Don't you guys worry about it. I see Taylison in the chat has a question. If you submit that over at punishprops.com/live, that's where your questions can go, and we will wrangle them for you. All right, so the big news of the week is that next week on this show is our 100th episode. That's right. It's impossible to even comprehend that we've done 100 of these things. But we did. It hasn't always been structured exactly like this, but if you go to our YouTube channel and go to the Prop Live playlist, you'll see that I believe there are 100 of them in there. So we're planning some stuff for it. Let's see, Prop Live Q&A. The very first one, check this out. The very first one, there's a lot of them. Like this one was just like me. It's a costume making Q&A. April 20th, 2013. So almost 3 years ago. Again, it blows my mind. We've been doing this for 3 years. We started this show. So 100 episodes coming up next week. And we have plans. We have so many plans, and they're all written down. Okay, it's going to be at the same time, Thursday the 24th. That's in 1 week at 5 p.m. But we're going to go a little long, right? Probably a good 2 hours. We have a lot more to talk about, so we will be extending it to a couple hours. We're going to have the most special guest of all time, the chat. That's right. We're going to be dragging some of you chat guys into the show. Brittany is handling that. Brittany is collecting names and making a hit list. We want to thank you guys. They're going to have giveaways. We've been piling a bunch of stuff over there. We've got stickers and posters, and we got swag from conventions and stuff piled up over there. We're going to do giveaways. So mark it on your calendar. 1 week from right now, our 100th episode. So that's coming up. I'm really excited. You guys in the chat, you look really, really stoked too. Phoenix Revival says April 20th is his birthday. Well, awesome. It is actually April 19th will be 4 years, the anniversary of me quitting my day job. So there's that too. Pretty awesome. Cool. That is about all the shopkeeping or housekeeping I have planned. So I think I'm going to dive into a whole bunch of your guys' questions. I see we have some bunch of regulars in there. Taverna do Doraco apparently means Dragonborn's Inn in Portuguese, which I know that now. WMB Props wants Buddha Cat autographs. We'll see what we can do. I can't promise if he's going to cooperate. He's kind of wily, kind of a jerk. Lon Caning is setting a calendar reminder. Very good. Very good. I'm really stoked. All right. I'm just going to start answering some questions. No guest today. You just got me. I've got my toy robot over here with a little. I just want to show you. This making little pieces that fit together. I made the little. This is sort of his hips, and this leg part just fits in like that. Like that. His head will go up there, and then I'll cast more legs to go in there, and then his little shin part goes on there. I'm just so tickled by building a tiny robot. All right, I'm going to answer you guys some questions. Let's dive into it. First one comes from Smack City, who just bought a 3D printer. Yes, I got mine right behind my huge melon. How big do you make your layers generally? I would think you can print with larger layers to speed up the print if you plan to sand it afterwards. I print at the finest quality that this machine will put out, which I don't know what that number is, but I have Simplify 3D open right now so I can check. Layers are 0.1 millimeters. So that's how thick that is. 0.1 millimeters. This is my first 3D printer. I've never changed that setting, so I don't know what the difference is. But that now you know what my settings are. The finer the detail there is, the easier it is to sand. I find that I like to sand little pieces like this straight out of the printer. I'll sand it nice and smooth with like a 220 grit sandpaper before I apply anything to fill in the layers. I can get rid of most of that texture. That's a bigger piece. This piece right here, let's see if you can actually see that, if it's going to focus. There it goes. Kind of. Anyway, most of the texture is gone on that. The pink are pieces of styrene that I added afterwards. Because I didn't know how to model those. I didn't know how to model that on the thing, so I just glued on some styrene. But I'll sand it first with like 220, and then I'll hit it with filler primer and sand it, and that should be just about enough to get it to where I need it to go. But I always print at the highest quality. Turns out that's at 0.1 millimeters. All right, cool. That was Smack City. Thank you for your question. Up next, Nerdy Views wants to know, I've been taking your advice and starting slow by repainting some toy guns. And I have a repaint project coming up soon you guys are going to be excited about. That rhymes with Flon Flolo. I'm going to paint a Han Solo gun. That's what I'm doing. Anyway, Nerdy Views wants to know, how would you go about building a display stand for these guns? I'd rather have them on my shelf and not on the wall. I'm shooting a wall mounting video this weekend. It's funny you should ask that. Hey, Logan Hall 1987 is now hosting you. Thank you. Yes, Flon Flolo. I'm so sweet. Oh, Henchman Props is hosting me too. You guys. Thank you. That's my new Star Wars name. All right. So I am doing a couple of different ways to wall mount something, but you can do. Let me see if I can actually. I don't remember if I took a picture of that. I did my. District 9. There you go. Words are hard, Bill. I did my District 9 gun, and I made a really neat stand for that. And now I'm just wondering if I ever even took photos of it. I don't have them up on my page. But essentially what I did for the District 9 gun, I wanted the stand to look kind of grungy, like it really fit together with the piece. So I took just a piece of plywood, and then I got some metal grating, like a vent cover, like a mesh looking vent cover from the hardware store. I got a couple of them, and I cut my board to be the same size as two of those laying lengthwise next to one another. And then I just screwed those down to the board. And then on top of that, I made a couple of stanchions out of PVC pipe, just connectors. So they made like a Y connector. I don't have a gun. I was gonna say, where's my blaster gun? I don't know. Anyway, we'll pretend this is a gun, even though it's just a PVC pipe. I just made like a Y sort of connector thing out of PVC pipe with like a T joint and an L joint and pipes, and then the gun would just rest in that. Because the District 9 gun, you can't set it down anywhere. It's just really inconvenient. So just a couple of like Y-shaped PVC pipes that were connected to that board, and then I could rest the gun on top of there. And then I painted it to look all grungy and dirty. And I'm pretty stoked with how that one turned out. And it turns out that I don't have any photographs of it. That was a crazy 21 days. That's what it took for us to put that together. I think I gotta find this real quick. Miscellaneous images. I know I've got a picture of that. I do. There it is. There it is. Let me see if I can share this real quick. Let's just add an image like that. Window capture. We'll just do that. And the picture. Nope, that's not it. TVC something. This is great television. But I'm really proud of this picture. I want to show it off. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. Preview. There it is. There it is. Figured it out. There's me at the tested party with my District 9 gun, being like, "Hey guys, look how cool this is." So you can see the sort of weird Y-shaped stanchion things that I made, and my District 9 gun in the background. Right, and there we go. Cool. So that's how I would do it. That's how I would solve that problem. But there are a lot of different ways. You could make it all out of wood if you wanted to. But PVC pipes are so easy. So easy. What's this? Oh, Rocket Man Props in the chat found a better picture because apparently Oh, yeah, look at that. There we go. You can kind of see them in that. So they look like metal. That's just because I painted them that way. But they're those are just PVC pipe, little caps and stuff on them. Thank you, Rocket Man Props. Thank you so much for being more competent at finding my content than I am. All right. Core Geek is hosting me. Thank you, Eric. Corium9 Creations has a question and a picture. And I'm going to open the picture first. There we go. So here's the thing. This is a thing. The bubble gun, I think, is the Team Fortress. What's his name? The Pyro. There we go. The Team Fortress Pyro gets a bubble gun, which I think is hilarious. I'd like to make the Team Fortress 2 Pyro Rain Blower, but I'm not sure how to do the organic pipes. Any suggestions? One idea was to somehow heat form PVC around something conical and hope it doesn't collapse. That's going to be a challenging prospect. Those are very organic, weird-looking shapes. There are a lot of different ways to tackle this. I'm going to mention one that's a little involved, but it's a pretty good process. Let's see if I can find him. If I can find a picture real quick. There's an artist named Jason Freeney on Facebook, on the internet. He does these amazing sculptures. He just finished these little frog creatures. I love that he always includes a butthole. He's always got little buttholes in his creatures, which cracks me up. But he will create these organic shapes by shaping them out of like a rigid foam. I'm working my way back through some of his builds. He makes the shape roughly out of like insulation foam. Here you can see the inside of it. So the foam has been gouged away, and he's sort of filling it back in with epoxy clay is what he uses. There we go. So he makes the rough shape out of that. I'm not sure what kind of foam. It's a foam, but it's just like a urethane foam or an insulation foam or the foam you use for like florists like to use. He makes the rough shape out, so he sculpts it out, and then he coats it, skins all of it with an epoxy clay, and then sands that kind of smooth. So he's got the outer shape, and then he gouges out all the foam on the inside, and then when that is gone, you can see here it's all hollow, but he's got that rough texture on the inside. He'll sculpt over that with more of that epoxy clay. Here he sculpted sort of a lip around it, around the edge, And then here you can see oops. Nope. I lost it. I clicked on the wrong thing. Well done, Bill. Yeah, anyway, he sculpts more of that epoxy clay on the inside to make the inner shape. And that's how he gets his really nice looking organic shapes, both inside and out and hollow. So that's, like I said, that's one of a lot of different methods you could use to get that kind of effect. But there you go. Your mileage may vary. If you're looking for a cheaper alternative too, you could do it out of EVA foam. You could, what else is there? You could sculpt it out of chicken wire and then skin it with paper mache. Like, there's a lot of different ways you could do. So hopefully that's given you enough ideas to get started. And then you talked about PVC pipe in your question. Yeah, you could use PVC pipe for most of it and then sculpt those flared horn parts on the end of the PVC pipe. All right, that was Corium 9 Creations. Thank you for your question. Oh, Britt. Britt just left a note in the chat that we updated our website. So I'm going to take a moment here to run you guys quickly through the updated punishedprops.com. All right. There it is. So it's not crazy different the way we run the website. It looks very much the same. Mostly just the side bar over here looks kind of different, but there's a lot under the hood that runs a little bit differently. So whatever our newest post, like the sanding tools post, is front and center there, but we have a page dedicated to if you're new to prop and costume making. We have all of our videos right here. We have our live stuff on Twitch. We have our Patreon linked right there, all of our social media stuff. So all of that's front and center. The really important thing about the update to our website is we have 7 years of content on this website, all this prop and costume making content. And because this is a blog style website, a lot of that stuff got buried. So if you go up to the menus up here under projects, it's broken into subcategories. So we've got a guns project page, and under that page, you go to it, here is all of the content we've ever made about guns. So here's the District 9 article. There's Ray's Blaster. All of these. There's just a wealth of knowledge there. And now it's organized in a way that it's all as close to the surface as possible. Another good one is under Techniques. So we've done just a bunch of molding and casting stuff. So if you go to the Techniques tab and go to Molding and Casting, sure enough, there's a bunch of information about molding and casting materials. There's our whole series on molding and casting. And then any build that we've used, that we've done using molding and casting gets linked down there. So yeah, this site is, all these changes are live. Everyone can go see it. It's a lot easier to go dig through all of our old content and find stuff relevant to what you want to find. The other thing is that and then as we add new content, it will automatically get added to those pages. So if we do more molding and casting, it'll automatically get added to that molding and casting page. So you definitely want to just bookmark punishedprops.com and just check it every once in a while, because we'll always have more new content going up there, and it'll always be organized in a way that you can find it. Thank you, Brittany, for pointing that out. I need to keep telling people. Brittany did the lion's share of the work on that, so and she did a great job, and it looks awesome. Thank you, Britt. You're the best. Everyone go check it out. Great. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program. Mark Shabot wants to know, I'm working on a pair of boots for a set of Mandalorian armor. They are canvas lace-ups with rubber soles and craft foam details. I would like to coat everything with something before painting. I was thinking Plastidip or Flexidip, but I'm concerned about how durable the finish would be. Any ideas on how well either of these will work to coat canvas? Should I worry about peeling? Is there any other type of product that would be a better choice? I would say that because boots are going to flex and bend a lot, Plastidip would probably, unless you put a really thick coat on, Plastidip would probably end up creasing a lot. whatever you put on there needs to be able to flex a lot without cracking or without creasing. So for that, I like latex rubber myself a lot. But you could also you could even just paint it with like leather paints. So Angelus leather paints are really, really good. I've seen people use those to paint leather boots. So I imagine painting canvas boots would probably be a pretty good, probably work out pretty well. And also you can repaint them over time if they do get dinged up. So I would probably just get some Angelus leather paints in whatever color you want and coat them and paint them all whatever color and put, I don't know, good 2-3 layers on there and run with it. Should probably be okay. Just make sure you let them dry really well before you go running around in your Mandalorian costume. There you go. Something else you can do, actually, this is a pretty good technique for foam as well, is you can take your contact cement, if you have barge or DAP contact cement, and before you paint anything on your shoes, you might brush a layer of contact cement on the whole thing, then paint over that with your acrylic paints. That will help the paint bond to the canvas or foam or whatever you're working on. So there's another way to help, especially any parts that are going to get a lot of wear and tear, like your shoes. Thank you, Mark, for the question. And then we have Marcus, different person, for our next question, who is working on an Arkham Knight build using a mix of foam and Warbler to do so. I was thinking of ways to do the helmet, but I'm stuck on how to pull it off. I'm thinking of using a clear material and a vacuum table, but I can't figure out how to tint it afterwards where I can still see through it. Any suggestions you could provide would be helpful. All right, Arkham Knight. It sounds like there's a specific, because people have been doing Batman cowls for a long time. Oh, okay, yeah. It's really wacky. It's this really like high tech looking Batman mask thing. There we go. Oh, can I zoom in? No. Zoom in? Nope. Okay. This is a Mac. I don't know how to zoom in. All right. But yeah, that's a really high-tech looking Batman thing. Vacuum forming, you're going to have to vacuum form it in several pieces, but vacuum forming is a really good way to do it. You could even vacuum form that whole front sort of face part and tint it blue. In fact, we have a video. We'll put a link in the show notes. We have a video to tinting vacuum formed PETG plastic. That's one way to do it. The glowing eyes are going to be really challenging, but Iron Man costume people have kind of figured that out. Usually you'll put like a white piece of acrylic plastic with LEDs in it, and then maybe put a slit under that white bar across your eyes so you can actually see out. That's another way to do it. But yeah, if you can vacuum form it, I would just make sure you do it in a couple of pieces. That front sort of face part mask could be done differently, and that could fit into the surrounding helmet part that you've got. And you could totally tint that a dark blue using RIT dye, using iDye Poly is what we ended up using. But again, we'll have a link in the description to the video on tinting visors using your vacuum forming and PETG plastic. Did I get all of that one? Yeah. Figure out how to tint it. Yeah, that would be the best way to do it. Again, if you have a good big vacuum form table, that would be awesome. Thank you, Marcus, and good luck. That looks like a really really challenging build right there. It does not look easy. I haven't played the Arkham Knight costumes, but that looks pretty wacky. Not my favorite. I really like the Arkham City style of Batman. That's one of my favorites. Kind of more cloth looking outfit. Kevin Conroy with the voice. Yeah. Okay, another one of our regulars here, Mr. Fearless Facade, has a question. And I'm going to take a sip of my delicious Diet Dr. Pepper. Well, by the way, folks at Dr. Pepper, if you're looking for a sponsorship, let me know. I'm right here, man. Fearless Facade wants to know, I was wondering what you would suggest using to create a headlamp on a T60 Power Armor helmet from Fallout 4, and also the breather pipes that fit into the mouthpiece. Any ideas? And he sent us a picture. Let's get the picture. There it is. So he's asking about the headlamp piece up on the top of the noggin there. Now, I'm willing to bet if you hunt around just a little bit, like on Amazon, you can find a flashlight with a fixture that looks pretty close to that. Maybe a flashlight piece that you could wrap a piece of thin styrene around to sort of elongate that collar, that sort of hood that goes around it. You could, yeah. And then everything else I see on there could either be done, I would probably do in my lathe for the round sort of face bits. You could turn it on your lathe, mold and cast it, or you could just turn a couple of them on your lathe out of wood, or I like to use just solid bucks made out of urethane plastic for turning on the lathe. And then, there are pipes, there are tubes coming out of that too. Like, those are the connectors, the tubes that come out of it, the pipes. And those, you got to be able to buy those somewhere. They're just rubber hoses. I don't know if you could probably buy that new. I don't know what you would look for, but those are the kind of thing you're going to go to scrap yards and see what they have for fixtures and fittings for mechanical pieces and machinery, and see if you can find something similar to that. Otherwise, you might just take a normal piece of tubing and glue some, because it's kind of got that like ribbed thing going on. You could glue strips of foam around it to make it look all ribbed. That's one way to do it too. But as far as the fittings on that helmet go, a lot of those look like you could get pretty close with a lot of plumbing fittings. If that's the way you're gonna do it, cool. I'm just checking out the chat there. Oh, let me zoom in on. Oh, I forgot. I don't know how to zoom in. Cool. Yeah, people are asking about the modulus props. Is curious about painting leather paints on canvas. Yeah, if it doesn't work, definitely put the do some tests like on some scraps, obviously, but laying down some contact cement before you paint will help a bunch. Let's see. Yeah, people in the chat are agreeing that you could use some flashlight parts for that headlamp. Yeah, the great thing about using a flashlight for that sort of thing is you can put the real flashlight on there, just the front of it, and then extend the leads on the light and put the handle for the flashlight anywhere else in your armor, and just so that it still works. You just have to run a lead off of the positive and negative terminals on your light bulb, and then you can run the tube to your belt or something. You can still just turn on that headlamp, and then you won't get lost in the dark at the convention because you got a headlamp. And that was Fearless Facade. Thank you very much. We have Nick at Modulus Props with a question. Another one about the 3D printer. He was curious about how you chose your 3D printer. What were some of the features you knew you wanted? We are a special case because our friends at Autodesk worked with us to put together our Prop 3D video series that we did a while back. We'll put a link to the whole playlist of those videos down in the description of this episode. But they worked with us and paid us to put on. They sponsored us for that video series and paid us, and they said we'll get you a 3D printer for it. And they were partnered with Dremel, so we have a Dremel Idea Builder right there, and that came as part of the sponsorship for that video series. So we didn't get to pick out which one we were going to do, but let me tell you a little bit about why I like this one. We got it at Home Depot. We just drove there and they had it. The guy at Home Depot was a little confused. I don't think they move a lot of them, but they sell filament right there. I usually order my filament on Amazon, but if I need it in a pinch, I can just drive to Home Depot and buy the PLA that this thing uses. Other than that, this machine worked right out of the box. Pulled it out of the box, set it down, turned it on, The memory card came with some models right on it, and I hit the level thing. It took about a minute to level it, then told it to print something, and it did. Just like that. No tweaking necessary, no fiddling or at all, or yeah, I didn't. It just worked right out of the box, which was awesome. It does a pretty good job at printing. Obviously, there are other printers that do better, but obviously, also I'm getting very, very usable prints out of it. All of these were done on the Dremel printer. So yeah, I like how plug and play it is. Now, the software that came with it, the Dremel software, does not give you a lot of control over the print and the quality. So I went and got Simplify 3D, and now we'll put a link to that in the description as well. Simplify 3D is awesome. That instantly improved the quality of the prints coming out of the machine, and it gives you a lot more customizable options. So that coupled with this printer is pooping out some really cool looking little 3D printed doodads there. That being said, I am confident that in 5 years I will have half a dozen, or have tried half a dozen different 3D printers. It's an industry where just new, better, cheaper machines are coming out every single year, and I'm totally hooked. The other day I spent working on Mr. Handy here. I would model a piece, send it to the printer, and while it was printing, I'd model the next piece. And then I just did that all day to get most of all these little pieces printed out. So I'm totally hooked. I love it. Oh, It's Kiwi is telling me to Alt plus scroll wheel to zoom on a Mac. Alt scroll wheel. Oh, nope, it's not working. It's not working. I don't know. That was Modulus props. Actually, features I would look for in a future build. I would love to have a 3D printer that was big enough that I could print a whole helmet all at once. I think that would be really awesome. And on the other side, I really want one of those little SLA resin printers for doing really high detailed stuff. So like these little bits and bobs here, I could put even more detail on it. Like I told you, like I didn't know how to model that, so I stuck it on there. But Mr. Handy's butt here, there's little lines in there. I wasn't confident that our printer was gonna get those, so I left that place the area clear, and then I just used some styrene to put those details in there. But with a really nice resin printer like that that so super pretty Form 2, those things do tiny details really, really well. So eventually I'll have to get one of those as well. So yeah. All right. Mr. Byte TV in the chat says, I do love an SLA. Yeah, me too. Let's see here. How's everyone in the chat? Has anyone got any bingo? Let's see if we can get an update in the chat. If you've gotten any anything in the bingo game. I don't think anyone's won bingo yet, but let's get an update in the chat, and I'll go grab the next question. Next one comes from Pyro Props. What scroll saw and knife do you use? Well, I can tell you the scroll saw I have is a Craftsman 17-inch scroll saw, variable speed scroll saw. That thing's a workhorse. It was, I don't know, $100 or something. Scroll saws are things you can get used on Craigslist all the time, and they're all pretty much the same thing. There isn't a huge range of quality when it comes to scroll saws. Just how big they are mostly. But this that thing is pretty awesome. So look up Craftsman 17-inch scroll saw, I think. That and the 17-inch is how deep the choke is. And then as far as knives are concerned, I have lots of knives. I have, let's see. I don't know. I'll tell you what, this is a good opportunity to go, if we go to punishprops.com and go to tools and materials. If you go to Bill's Tools, you'll see a list of all the tools that I use, including safety gear, including software that I use, Foamsmithing tools. And let's see, do I have my, I don't have my, no, I do. All my video and audio gear is on there too. It's really great. These are all Amazon affiliate links. So if you guys use them, then we get a tiny cut, which helps us out more than you think, which is pretty awesome. There's a handful of different tools or knives in there, but like I said, I just have a whole bunch. On me right now, I'll show you the one I have. I really like Kershaw knives. This is a good made in the USA Kershaw knife. I can't remember the name of it, but it's an assisted opening blade. So it's got a little spring in there, and it's good for opening one-handed if I need it. It'll just open like that. And then I also have on me, let's see, what do we have over here? The Leatherman Wingman, this guy right here, which is also really handy to have with the chompers. So this is the Wingman's a pretty good stock one. It's not too expensive. I believe I had a Lowe's gift card, and I was like, I need a Leatherman. So that's where I got that. And then I have a crap load of X-Acto knives and retracting, telescoping, snap-off blade knives, and I have a bunch more other pocket knives. So kind of a broad category. Actually, if you want to see a really impressive collection of knives, look up Jimmy Diresta. We'll put a link into the description. Jimmy Diresta did a video showing his knife collection. It's absurd how many knives he has. Just a ridiculous amount. Pocket knives and all sorts of stuff. Dragonborn Inn has a question. Oh, that last one came from Pyro Props. New one. Dragonborn Inn. Is there a way to make EVA foam more rigid and strong with simple materials? You can use denser foams. L200 is a normal sort of density, but they make like L300, L400. It gets drastically more expensive at that point, but it is more dense and therefore more rigid. But if you have normal foam that you want to make more rigid, there's a couple things you could do. Now, if you want to go kind of crazy with it, you could fiberglass the outside of it. And that's what we did for our Draugr helmets. The undead creatures from Skyrim. So the base was made out of EVA foam, and then it was coated in epoxy resin, or was it fiberglass resin? Laid on fiberglass cloth, built it up to make it nice and rigid. So you could go that route if you want to. If you just need it to be more sturdy, if you're making a piece of armor out of EVA foam, you could reinforce the back of it with a variety of other materials. You could heat form pieces of Sintra plastic or styrene plastic and then like hot glue it back there. Like there's a bunch of different stuff you could do. You could even coat the outside of it with epoxies like Epsilon. Smooth On makes that. You have to use a lot of it, like several layers, to have a good thick shell on the outside. But that's another way to go. Just keep in mind, you're going to have to do an awful lot of sanding to make it look all nice and smooth. Yeah, but there are some good options there for you with your EVA foam. Thank you, Dragonborn Inn. I see Ninja Moose is asking a question in the chat. We're taking those over at punishprops.com/live. You guys definitely sent a whole bunch of questions since the show started, so thank you. Next one comes from Jordan. When sealing foam to paint, would you recommend Mod Podge or Plasti Dip or something else? A lot of that depends on the finish that you're trying to get. Now, Mod Podge is cheap and readily available. Plasti Dip is really convenient because it comes in a spray can. My personal favorite for sealing foam is latex rubber, but you got to go buy a bunch of latex. You got to get a way to... I like to spray it if you can, so you don't have any brush marks in it. It's not as convenient as something like Mod Podge or Plasti Dip. It's definitely not as cheap, but it makes a nice thick rubber coating, like the giant axe I have right there. That thing is indestructible. So yeah, that's my favorite. But if you're in a rush, or you want something convenient, or you want something cheap, then Mod Podge and Plasti Dip are both really good. In fact, you could put on a couple layers of Mod Podge, sand it a little bit to smooth it out, and then hit it with Plasti Dip. I believe Evil Ted's done that a couple times. So, lots of different options when it comes to sealing your foam. Thank you, Jordan. Next one comes from Gary. I'm struggling with the paint on my Iron Man costume. It keeps cracking. Any advice? I'm sealing with PVA, then Plasti Dip, and then a primer, and then paint. it might be just the sort of case where if your armor is flexing at all, the paint is cracking on top of it. That's why when I do foam armor, I plan on it. Is Lord Shax? Where's Lord Shax? He's hiding back there. I plan on it being able to flex. Here we go. So this was sealed with latex rubber and then painted with acrylic paints, and it can flex. The leather paints that I use are really, really flexible, and it won't crack. So it could be that you're using a paint that just doesn't flex really well. That's why, again, I like those Angelus leather paints. They're very, very flexible when it comes to armor. So even though this is like supposed to be armor plating, I would rather it be flexible. And same thing with an Iron Man costume. I would rather have it be flexible so that if I fall in it or if I bump against something, it's going to bend and flex without cracking, compared to having like a more rigid shell that might crack. The other way you could go is the extreme opposite, where you make the whole thing out of fiberglass so that it's indestructible, and then you can paint it with whatever you want because it won't flex. There we go. But as far as, going forward with your costume, if you want to try a couple of different techniques, then just do some small scale tests on scraps of whatever you're building your costume out of. That way you don't go paint like a whole bunch of your armor and then have to redo it because it's cracking. Also bear in mind too that some paints, when you layer them, don't play well with one another. That was Gary. Good luck with your Iron Man. Next one comes from Max Money AWA. Are you Max Money Anime Weekend Atlanta? Is that what that stands for? What's easier to make with foam, armor or weapons? It depends on your skill set. Personally, weapons for me tend to be much more geometric, and they don't need to fit around like body shapes. So I can piece together something like the Jade Rabbit, which is upstairs. I can or this axe right there. Very geometric shapes there. So figuring it out for me isn't as much of a brain exercise as a torso, like the Lord Shax's torso right there. That can be a little bit more tricky. But some people can whip that thing out like nobody's business. Yeah. And then the second question from Max. Do you always have to weather props? You always talk about weathering your props, but I was wondering if that's a must-do for prop making. It depends on the story you're telling with your prop. Actually, I'm going to show you an old prop that I did not weather. If I could spell. Most of the things, I like to make costumes and props that look like they've been in the world. They're not brand new. They're not right off the factory line. Here we go. But that doesn't mean I don't do that. Boop. The Team Fortress 2 shotgun and pistol. These are supposed to look all cartoony and fresh, so that's the way I painted them. And what's funny is I had to be really careful about the finish. I guess we jump right to paint. I didn't. This was 2009, I think, so I didn't do a great job of, or 2010. I didn't really document it really well, but. I had to be really careful about masking and keeping it clean because I couldn't hide my crimes with weathering. So, no, you don't have to weather everything. I just tend to prefer things that look like they've lived in the world a little bit. Even the Jade Rabbit that I did recently, it's supposed to look pretty clean in the game. I weathered it a little bit because I wanted it to have a little more contrast. I wanted it to look like it's been in the world, getting knocked around a bit, and getting used. I just find that more visually interesting. But again, that really depends on the story you want to tell with the prop that you're trying to make. But I will say, actually, any prop that's white, I did the Phalanx, the M5 Phalanx pistol from Mass Effect. Almost impossible. Like, you gotta weather that, because while you're painting it, if you smudge it or touch it with anything, it looks dirty. So anything that's white, or that District 9 gun, I'm glad that was supposed to look all dirty because it's got a lot of white on it. And you touch that with anything, and it just becomes dirty. So from just the way I work, I tend to be a little sloppy. So with my finishing work, that is. So weathering it is a good way to hide those crimes. Thank you, Max Money, Anime Weekend Atlanta. A couple more questions here. I might drag a couple, just chat with you guys a little bit if we run out of questions. But this one comes from Apt Designs. How do you remove or cover up the lines or seams that you get when you glue several pieces of foam together? I tried Dremeling, but you still see those dang seams. Usually what I like to do... Can I show... Is there any... Let's take a look at Shaq's again. So, it's a pretty good example. Can we see that? I wonder if it's even going to show up. Like, there's a little bit of a seam on that edge right there on this thigh piece, but I'm not too concerned with that. I got it really, really close. When I'm gluing two pieces of foam together, I use contact cement. I use barge contact cement usually. And then I spend a lot of time taking those two pieces and touching them together so that the seam is nice and clean. The closer you get it when you're putting the two pieces of foam together, the better off you're going to be. You can clean it up a little bit. You can fill it with something like Quick Seal. In fact, Evil Ted has a good video on that, and we'll put a link to that down in the description. But I prefer, if I have a seam that doesn't look great, I'll even pull it apart. I'll use some barge thinner, pull that apart, reapply my barge, and glue it back together again so that I don't have to worry about filling it. Yeah, there's just the hint of a seam along here. That line is from my masking. That's not in the seam, but just right along there's just a hint of a seam, and I'm totally okay with that. And I didn't try and fill that or anything. That's just how it ended up after I glued it, and then I sealed it with a bunch of latex rubber. So the other thing is, if you're like laminating or gluing two pieces edge to edge and there's a seam between them, you don't want that. Or if you've cut a dart in a helmet and there's a seam there, what I'll try and do is plan those seams to be in a place where I can cover it up later. Sometimes I'll even alter the design of whatever it is I'm making to add a little something that sort of covers the seam. A good example, actually, speaking of old costumes, a really good example of that, I made Demon Hunter armor for my friend Veronica Belmont. And the shoulder pieces for that are really outrageous looking. These shapes on her big left shoulder over there. Let's see. I did a terrible job of I did a really terrible job of taking pictures for this build. But this, especially the top spiky part there, those are just two pieces of foam with a really ridiculous seam. And when I glued them together, the seam was hideous. So I just cut a thin strip of 2mm craft foam and covered the seam with that. I made it look like that strip that went down the side of it. That wasn't in the original design. I added that. It covered the seam. It looks like it's supposed to be there, and no one's the wiser except you guys now just the internet. Yeah, but that's what I do. I'll just cover my seams with an extra little piece of detail, and no one else has to know. That's the way I do it. That is how you foamsmith. Thank you, App Designs. All right, one more question here. What kind of sealant would you recommend to paint 3D printed parts? This is from Matt Bender. Matt, I'm going to just tell you how I'm going to plan on doing these guys right here after I put my thigh piece back. So, a couple of things. Now, I haven't done a lot of 3D printing yet. This is probably my second or third big project. But most of the things that we've 3D printed, we've been molding and casting so that we can make more copies quickly and cheaply. And also because the 3D print material, like the PLA, will actually biodegrade. So I prefer to mold and cast my pieces. That's not to say that you have to, but these guys, I sanded them with some 220 grit sandpaper to get rid of all the stair stepping, all those lines. I get rid of as much of that as I can. Let's see. There's a little bit of shiny part up here. Let's see if we can get that to focus. Yeah, that top part hasn't been sanded yet, but the thigh piece, you can see I added a little A little bit of Bondo up here because I had to fix it up a little bit. Oh, there we go. So this is at the point where I've sanded it with 220 grit sandpaper. And that's why it's not black anymore. It's kind of like grayish. Hey, how about you focus there, camera? There we go. So first I do that. Sand it to get rid of as much texture as I can. You can't get rid of all of it. There's a lot of little details. But then I spray it down with filler primer. And that's where this is right now. This part of Mr. Handy is done with a filler primer. And that's a thicker, like automotive filler primer. And that fills in any remaining details that you have. Focus. Focus. There we go. That fills in any remaining details. You can see that's pretty smooth right there. Now this I'll sand with like a 400 grit sandpaper. And then what I'll probably do after that point is hit it with primer again, just to see if there are any more spot areas, maybe like a red primer that contrasts with that gray. Rocket Man Props is pointing out that PLA biodegrades in different conditions. It will be fine covered in paint on a shelf. That's good to know. I still like to mold and cast all my things. But anyway, after I sand the filler primer with 400 grit sandpaper, I prime it again with like a different colored primer, and then I'll sand it, maybe wet sand it one more time up to like, start at 400 and then go up to like 600 or 800. Depending on how smooth I want it. This guy I want to be pretty shiny, so I'll take it pretty high. And then you can prime and paint it however you want. Model paints would be really good for this. Tamiya makes their own rattle can primer. You can see how I painted my Rays blaster. We had a video on that down in the description. Or actually, I have a good article on tested.com all about how I painted that using lacquers. So it really depends on how you want to finish it at that point. But that is how I prefer to seal and finish my 3D printed parts. There are a lot of different products you can use. I use, there's a little bit of red in there, actually, on this guy. That's a Bondo spot glazing putty to fill in any grooves up to like 1/16 of an inch. Anything bigger than that, I'll use some Bondo to fix up any defects in the print. And then you can go over it with XTC 3D if you want, which is a good way to fill in all of that stair stepping. But again, like I said, I prefer to get rid of that right out of the printer with some good old fashioned elbow grease and sandpaper. So hopefully that long-winded explanation helped you out there, Matt. Cool. That is just about all we've got for today. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and sending me your wonderful prop and costume making questions. Once again, next week, set your calendars, set your reminders. 100 episodes of Prop Live. We're going to do a bunch of really cool stuff. We're going to have people coming in on the stream to chat with us. We're going to have giveaways. Like I said, set your calendar. Do some giveaways live on the show. I have a list. What else do we have? It's going to be an extra long episode. We're going to go for a couple of hours. Yeah, that's what we got. We will have that next week. Thank you again to our patrons. I got to mention this one more time. You guys are awesome. Every little bit that you guys send our way helps us out so much, making more good content for our video channel. Right now, that helps fund one weekly shop video and 2 live streams that we do. So 3 good hunks of video content for your eyeballs. That helps fund that. And also on Fridays, I send out a little behind the scenes tip post over on Patreon just for our $1 and up patrons. So a little bit extra. And like I said before, we're looking to add more sort of interactivity there, more have you guys help us figure out what content we should make next. Also, too, I'm going to post in the chat one more time a link to our survey. This is just to get a general idea about the video content that we're doing and what you guys want to see going forward. So head on over there. It just takes a minute or two to fill out. Thank you so much. That's all I have for this week of Prop Live. Next week, same time, same place, 100 episodes. I'll see you there. Don't miss it.